What's the trick that'll save you thousands of dollars on your AC system? The answer to that is very simple. Check your AC capacitors at least once a year. I do them like twice a year or more to see if they're within the specified range that is on the label for the capacitor. I'm Richard Lloyd. This is the Richard Lloyd USA YouTube channel, and thank you for coming and watching this video. In my last video, I showed you how to check your AC capacitors on the condenser or compressor outside unit, and we used a meter like this, and we'll use a meter like this again in this video. Look at the video description for a similar meter like this. This is capable of reading capacitance. Another nice thing is it has this clamp part here to read amps going through a wire without actually physically contacting it, and I'll show you how this works in the video as well. But why should we check these capacitors? Why don't I just wait and keep using it until the spare, or it's not the spare, till the capacitor blows and I just replace it, right? Well, number one, if you don't have a spare, that's a huge inconvenience. So always have a spare, number one. But the problem with doing that is that over time the capacitor degrades and degrades and degrades and degrades. And if you let your machine keep running on a degraded capacitor, you're creating a lot of wear and tear on it, and you're also using a lot more energy than you should. As capacitors degrade out of specification, the motors are supposed to assist or make more efficient become less efficient. So they get hotter, they run longer, they use more electricity, and they cool less. So, because they spin slower, they lose torque. So it's not a really good idea to keep using a worn out capacitor, because you're not only costing yourself a lot of money on electricity, you're wearing out your AC system. So today I'm going to show you how to check the capacitor on an inside unit, or the air handler, evaporator portion, and that in my case is in the garage. But that's the part that gets the cool air and blows it through the house, okay? But there is one more thing about just not doing this service. If you let a capacitor wear all the way down to the point where it's blown or dead, or it's zero, right? It's basically gone. What happens is that the motors on your AC system, either the blower, which is what we're going to be checking today, or the compressor, or the fan, the outside fan, cooling fan, they will overheat. They'll keep trying to go and run, and they'll run really hot, and eventually they can actually get so hot that they melt the actual wires, or the windings that make the motor run, the electric windings. They can melt the insulation on those, and then boom, the thing shorts out, and now you need a new compressor or a new fan or a new blower, and you don't want to do that, right? So the first thing you should do before you do any of this is here's the parts that I'm going to be using. Of course, the meter, the capacitor. This is a spare I already have. 8mm nut driver, or 5/16 nut driver. You can also do this sometimes with a flathead screwdriver, depending on the screws, but you find what you need. Basically, you need to take a panel off the air handler and unscrew the capacitor and replace it. Now, on the panel on my AC air handler, there's what we call a boiler plate, or a sticker with all the information about this device, or about this air handler. Now, what you want to do before you do anything is you want to find out what the specifications for your capacitor are. Now, in my case, my system's really old and I can't find it anywhere on the Goodman site, and it's a Goodman air handler, but I can Google this number and get the parts for this air handler from Repair Clinic and other places. So that's how I found out what my capacitor was. So, and I'll show you another way to do this in a minute, but let's just do that. As you can see here in my slide, my model number is A42-10, and you should take pictures of this stuff and keep it, because you never know what's going to happen to those stickers. And I'll show you why in a second. So A42-10, we do a Google search. Here we see Goodman air handler, which is mine, and go to parts. And you can see here that I have a capacitor right here, and it's a single round 370 12.5 microfarad. So let's just click on that, and I'll zoom in here, and you can see it on the screen. Yeah, that's what we're supposed to have for the proper capacitor for my air handler. So it's a 12.5 370. Now I'm going to go down here just to show you something. Here's a alternate capacitor for $4.88. They always do that. They put an alternate cheaper version down there, but it's perfectly fine. This one's 12.5 microfarads at plus or minus 3%, but it has 440 AC. Now, 440 volts, so it means that it can handle more voltage than the other one. Now, if your system is rated for 370, you can use a 440 volt capacitor, no problem, because you'll never go to 440. You'll go to 370. It'll work just fine. But if your system's rated for 440, you have to use a 440 capacitor. You cannot use a 370. If your capacitor is only 370 and you're putting in a 440 system, you're going to cook that capacitor. That's all there is to it. It's not built to do that. So you can go from 440 down to 370, no problem. Nothing will change. But you can't go from 370 up to 440. So in other words, you can't put a 370 volt capacitor in a 440 system. It'll just fry it. So just a little side note there. So as you can see, I've got the right capacitor. I didn't buy that one, but actually cheaper than the one I got. I got this one on Amazon, and it is a 12.5 microfarad capacitor, plus or minus 5%. And I'll show you how to do the calculation that shows you whether you're inside specification or not. Okay. Oh yes, I was going to show you the second way to find out what your capacitor is. Now I've had a nightmare, not a nightmare, but a horror story with my AC system, because I don't know who serviced it, but they just butchered it. My outside capacitor, I don't have it here, but was the wrong one, so I replaced it. Actually, there was two in there, and there was only supposed to be one double round, and so regardless, if you want to see that video, I'll put a link up here for it. But anyway, so that was wrong. There was all sorts of mess in the outside unit. So outside of checking the capacitor every 6 months or so, or every twice a year like I do, you should also just open up your system to see what's in there, because mine was horrendous. Like I said, that video I linked at the beginning of the video of this video, you can watch it there. So I took it apart, my air handler, and here is the fan motor, and has a serious scrape on it. I just and judging by the way that it's going across the motor, I'm thinking somebody dropped something in here and scraped the label. But the label on the fan usually has the capacitor on it. And that's another thing. My outside unit got so hot it melted the label on the motor. It's still working, but not good. But anyway, here you can see a seriously scraped up label and the capacitor ratings right here. And so we'll just move forward. I actually got lucky. I was actually able to get a picture of it and zoom in a little more to see this right here. It says cap, and you can see that it says 12.5370. So I know I've got the right capacitor at this point right here with the 12.5370. Actually, that is a 370 or 440. So this will do both. So that's an option as well. So move forward here. Now, here's the capacitor I took out on the screen. Wrong one. As you can see, it is a 10 440. So it is a 10 microfarad 440 volt AC. Now the 440 was right, but the 10 was way off. So we got already, even brand new, put in, it was off by 2.5 microfarads, which is way beyond the limit of what it should be. So wrong capacitor installed in my system. Another reason to go in and look, right? And I show you the math here. And basically what you do in my case, or in the case of this capacitor, you would take 10 microfarads and multiply it by 0.03, which is 3%, which would give you 0.3, plus or minus. So it can be above plus 0.3 or below 0.3. I find generally they degrade. And so the acceptable range in this case would be 10.3 microfarads to 9.5 microfarads. Now, if it's outside of that, on the upper end, a little bit, I wouldn't worry too much, because like I said, they sort of degrade. But if it's below 9.7, replace it. It's basically degraded beyond its specification. Get another one and replace it. Now, another good thing about doing this is that more than likely you will never have a blown capacitor that shuts your system down or destroys your system unexpectedly, because you're always going to know that you got a good capacitor. And these things wearing down, it's a highly destructive thing for your AC system when these things wear down to nothing. Okay, so don't let that happen. This is like, I think I paid like $9 for this on Amazon. Got it the next day. Have a spare always. Later on in this video, I will put a more detailed explanation of how the capacitor failing will destroy your AC system, or can destroy your AC system, harm it. And it'll just be, basically text, and you can see that towards the end of the video. But right now I'm going to put a disclaimer in, and then I'm going to show you how to get at this capacitor and how to test it. So anytime you're going to work on your AC system, the first thing you want to do is actually turn the thermostat off. So we're going to do that right now. In my case, it's the Nest system, so it's all digital. So I'm going to go up here to the waves and put it on off. And there we go. A lot of manual systems, even digital systems, have a little switch on the bottom that you can turn them off with as well. But in this case, it's the Nest, so I'm turning it off. And you may want to put a little note on it so that nobody comes in behind you and tries to turn it on when you're working on the machine, as that would be highly detrimental. You don't want it being triggered in any way whatsoever. So cover your bases and put a little note on it to make sure that no one in your house comes in and says, oh, it's hot, I'm going to turn it on while you're working on it. So safety first. Okay, my panel, the AC breaker or breakers are actually labeled AC, as you can see. Right now they're on. On is on this side. So what we're going to do is flip it over here to off, and now we're on the off side, killing all the power going to the air handler, which we're going to be taking the panel off and looking at the capacitor on. So yeah, again, make sure that you do this. My panel is inside my garage. Sometimes they're in other places in your home, but regardless, just turn the AC power off and make sure you got all the breakers off. So now that we got the power off, it's safe to start dismantling the air handler. This is the air handler here, and this panel here has to come off to actually get at the inside. And this has 10 screws here, sheet metal screws, holding this panel on, and we need to take it off. You might want to take pictures of the diagram there too, just for your own reference. But all 10 of these screws have to come off, and then we're going to take this panel off. All right, there's 10 bolts on this in total. I'm going to use my nut driver, and that's 8mm there, and they're all on the edges. So 5 on each side. I'll take them off, and then we'll take the panel off. And just to show you something, 105 in my garage. Let's see if you can see that. Or for your metric people, 40.7. Try again. Yep, 40.7, 105. That's how hot it is here in Texas today. Right, got all the screws out. Going to pull the panel, and this one is the easiest way to get it out, is to pull from the bottom and then release it all the way up. Mine has some insulation on the back of it too, so be careful with yours. If yours is different, just figure out how it comes off. But you need to remove that panel and get at the things inside. All right, got all the screws off. Just basic. Mine detaches from the bottom. You might want to take pictures of these diagrams. Kind of good to have them. And here's my model number. I've already Googled it and checked and seen what capacitor is supposed to be in here. It's a 12.5 microfarad, 370, 440. So let's see what we got. Seeing as what I saw on my outside unit, my condenser, I don't think my evaporator is giving me too much confidence here. Let's see what we got. And I've got the wrong one. So I'll zoom in and show you the capacitor. Anyways, the capacitor is right there. Condenser is right, sorry, the evaporator is right here. The fan and the fan motor is in there. And before we touch anything, I'm going to make sure the wires are not live and that there's no energy in it. All right, I currently have it on non-contact voltage there, and it should pop off if there's any voltage on anything. And from what you can see, nothing there. But just to give you an idea, I'll turn the power on. And now I know there's power. All right? So it does work. I'll turn the power off. And you can see now that I got nothing. And I'll test the voltage just to be safe on the AC. You see these wires coming in. I don't know what this is. It looks like an old power wire. Anyways, here's the one that's actually connected to everything. And if you, I don't know if, well, you should be able to see it on the video. You've got two leads right there, a black and a white. Between those two, there should be voltage. If there's anything there, we haven't turned the electricity off. So I'm going to put it right there. You can see. Yeah, let's go with that. There we go. It's probably better. 0. And if I turn the voltage on, or the AC on, or alternating current, you'll see now that I have 240 right there. So yeah, it's really important that you get the power off, okay? So make sure the power's off, and then we can continue on with the capacitor, which is down here, right there. And I'll get it a little closer there so you can see what the spec is on it, and we'll test it. So there's a capacitor, and once again, I'm not surprised. It's the wrong one. It says 10 microfarads, and it should actually be 12.5. So it's been wrong since I've had this house. I should have checked it first day. So obviously that AC inspection I got at the beginning wasn't very good. And there's some rust on it, but there's nothing leaking, and I don't see any holes in it, so that's okay. But it is the wrong capacitor. It would be 2.5 microfarads, too small or too little on day one. So I'll test it, and we'll see what we got. So there's a little boot here, a rubber boot, probably just to keep condensation off of it. I'm going to pull it back, and you can see there's two wires here. And let's test them for voltage. I'm going to put it on DC and make sure that it is a neutral capacitor. Currently showing 0, so no voltage there. And it's on the voltage is, you test that on DC, and I got nothing. So there's no voltage there, so it's safe to take the clips off. So we'll take the clips off, and we'll see how bad it is for capacitance, even though it's the wrong capacitor. All right, it's 10 microfarads, and it's plus or minus 3%. So that would be multiply it by 0.03, which means it would either be 10.3, the maximum it could be off, or 9.7, the least lower limit it could be on. So upper 10.3, lower 9.7. So let's see what we got. Well, we got 9.19, so way below the parameter. Not way below, but it's below its specified 3% down or 3% up, and so therefore even this being the right capacitor would still need to be replaced, but it's the wrong capacitor. So once again, I need to replace it with the right one, and that'll be a 12.5 microfarad capacitor. The other thing too, if you don't know what the actual rating for the capacitor is, and you can't find it on the internet, I did. I just Googled my model number on this air handler, and it told me it was a 12.5. If you can get a picture of the label on the motor on the inside of this thing, then usually on that label there is a value of capacitance for the motor. The one on my condenser outside my house, the label on it, on the fan motor had actually melted because they used the wrong capacitor, and they so overheated that motor that it melted the actual label on the motor. So there's proof. But I did get a picture of the label on this one here, and I'll show you that in this video, probably right after this clip. All right, we just have to remove this one, and it's just remove that screw. There's another screw underneath, but I'm going for that one on top. Again, 8mm on that, but you could use a screwdriver if you wish. There we go. And try not to drop it, because then you got to go fishing for it in the air, in the the evaporator. So I'd rather not. So there, that's out of there. Piece of junk, wrong from the day it was put in. I'll put a new one in here. Right here, it is a 12.5, and I'm going to write on the drum here, the fan drum or fan casing, what the actual number should be for that, and then I'll secure it down.
All right, I turned the strap upside down to give me the adjustment holes here because the capacitor is slightly different shape or diameter than the other one. It is a different one anyway, so I use these holes up here to give me a good place to secure it. So we'll see what works here. And again, just screw it in. And that's it. Connect the connectors. That's what I'm going to do next. There we go, nice and snug. Put it out a little bit. There we go. I'm going to go a little tighter on that. That's it. So now we put those connectors back on, like so. It really doesn't matter which ones you use, just 1 and 2. Put the rubber boot back on over the connectors. Again, it's there for a reason. I'm sure it's just to protect it from water condensation, as there would be some in here. And now I just put the back on here and actually test it out. I'm going to turn it on and test it out, make sure it works, and we'll be back. All right, I've turned on the cooling, and I'm waiting for the fan to turn on. I can hear it churning away. And there we go. Nice. Working well. I'm going to now turn it off again, and I'm going to put the panel back on. Okay, it will shut down.
All right, got that panel back on. We've got the right capacitor in there. Again, you saw the job on that. Wrong capacitor. Who knows what they did to the motor to scrape it up like that. Like I said, the panel's all screwed back in. So I tested it. It works great. Actually works better than it did before. It seems to blow harder, so which would make sense with the correct capacitor in there. I do have a spare right at this moment. So just in case, you know, this one unexpectedly blows, you know, I have one that I do it like this, change it. And massive heat wave here in Texas right now. This is the summer of 2023. And I was looking through Facebook yesterday, and there was a guy in there begging people, not begging, but asking for a capacitor for his AC system because his blew and his house was like 95 degrees and his family was very uncomfortable. And so yeah, you want to keep something like this, a spare like this around, and so you don't run into the crisis of I need an AC guy in the hottest day of the year, and every AC guy in the world is out there on some other call, and you're not getting any service for 4 or 5 days. So that's one reason to have a spare. But the other thing is if you check these capacitors regularly, I said 15-20 minutes, some basic spare basic tools like this meter, which is under $30. Again, video description below. Then you shouldn't have this problem at all. I mean, I've been running my system for 4 years, no problem. I've just replaced the main capacitor on my compressor after 4 years, and I never even thought to check the capacitor on my air handler, but I'm glad I did this video so that it, sort of made me wonder. I wonder what the inside capacitor is like. And when I checked it, I said I should have done that when I first moved into this house because it was the wrong one the last 4 years. Okay, and it was out of spec anyway. So again, put the right one in there. So another reason to do this whole service. But if you do this regularly, you shouldn't have downtime. And even if you do, you know how to get at the system quickly, and you should have a spare. 2 spares, one for the outside or whatever you need for the outside unit, and one for the inside unit like I showed you. So yeah, that should make your life much more predictable and a lot cooler and less prone to crisis. In other words, like I said, in Texas, if you lose your AC in the middle of the summer, it's a big deal. And again, protect your investment in your AC system by not letting it run down and wear out your AC system as well. In the video description below, I'll put links to all this stuff. Those are affiliate links. Please do me a favor. If you're going to buy this stuff, use the links in the video description, as it helps my channel and helps me bring more of this kind of content to you. Also, on top of that, you'll be sure to get the meters and tools from the same sellers I got them, so you'll know you got the same thing I used, which is, I love this meter, works great. Okay, and it's useful for a lot of other things, not just your AC, though. If you only ever used it for your AC, $30 is a good investment for that. Also, comment section below in the video. Use the comment sections to leave me questions, comments, suggestions. I love those. I make videos all the time from people's suggestions. Hey, can you do this for, or can you work on that, or do you have an answer for this? And I actually do videos from questions and comments all the time. So again, down there in the comment section, appreciate that. Also, if you like my content and want to see more, do me a favor, click the bell icon. Click the subscription link, which is usually in the bottom corner, or click subscribe. As part of that process, you're going to see a bell icon. Click on the bell icon, and then you'll be notified every time I put up a new video, and then you can watch it at your own leisure. Once again, and like always, thank you very much for watching. Take care of yourself, be happy, and we'll see you on the next video.